Thank you, Rabbi Stecker, for that wonderful introduction. When I was first approached by Mark Katz about speaking tonight, I asked an obvious question. What should I talk about? Mark said that over the years, we as a community have heard much about the actions and reactions at the individual level on and after 9/11. He suggested it might be nice to hear about the actions of the Vigilant Fire Company on and after that day. Where did we go and what did we do? How did we support each other through such a traumatic experience? Taking his suggestions to heart, I'll now reflect on those actions. September 11, 2001 dawned as a beautiful early fall day. The members of Vigilant began their days according to their individual practices, getting ready for work and school. I found myself working Unit 46 Young, an ALS level ambulance that Northwell runs in Western Queens as part of the New York City 911 system. As the first reports of a plane hitting the World Trade Center began to come in, we all experienced disbelief. There is no way that a plane could hit those buildings. Just couldn't happen. As more reports came in, we realized that this was no accident or fantastic prank. We realized this was real, it was enormous, and it was horrific. We knew that the call would come from New York City for additional assistance. We just didn't know when or for what. After all, the FDNY was so good that they would be able to get a handle on this pretty quickly, right? Soon enough, that call came. The Vigilance, along with almost every other fire department and ambulance corps on Long Island, answered that call. Most agencies had members who were on the job in the city as members of the FDNY, either as firefighters or as EMS providers, the NYPD, New York City Corrections, or the Port Authority Police Department. This was personal. With the assistance of the Nassau County Fire Marshal's Office, the types of assistance, numbers of units and locations were organized, staging areas were identified, and individual assignments were made. The Vigilants were given 2 assignments. We sent our ladder truck to cover Elmhurst as Acting Ladder Company 136, where we stayed for 24 hours. We also sent an ambulance to the EMS staging area at Shea Stadium. That unit was later moved down to the Chelsea Piers staging area during the night. I was able to check in with the EMS crew at Shea Stadium after I got off of work that night, shortly after 8 p.m. By that time, we knew that the FDNY, NYPD, and Port Authority PD had taken frightful losses in terms of equipment and, far more importantly, manpower. I was able to join in on a situational briefing led by an FDNY EMS lieutenant while I was there. He confirmed what we had already heard during the day. The upper levels of the FDNY had been gutted, not just decimated. The Elite Special Operations Command had lost huge numbers of members, as had the other line companies. EMS had suffered its own losses from the FDNY, the voluntary hospitals, private companies, and volunteer services. Control was only starting to be properly reestablished at that time. Over the following 2 weeks, Vigilant provided whatever assistance New York City asked for, be it ambulances for medical coverage at Ground Zero during the recovery efforts, or our rescue truck to help light a darkened lower Manhattan as Con Edison worked to restore power in the area. We provided members to work the pile, some being lucky enough to be present the day that President Bush visited the site and uttered the now famous words, "We hear you, the whole world hears you," from a distance of 25 feet. Those of us who went into Ground Zero did so with grim determination. We returned exhausted and dirty, but with no less desire to return and continue the search. The Vigilance had 2 members who were on the job and working that day. One was Joel, a paramedic stationed in Brooklyn on one of FDNY EMS's elite hazmat tactical response units. The other was John, a firefighter assigned to Squad Company 288 in Queens, a member of the Elite Special Operations Command. Both men responded to the World Trade Center without hesitation when assigned. By the time I reached Shea Stadium, We knew that Joel was okay, as a couple of Vigilant members had been able to contact him during the day. We had not yet heard any word on John, and we all feared the worst. We were now faced with some daunting tasks: continuing to provide assistance to New York City while maintaining normal operations in Great Neck, supporting each other as we processed our own reactions to the events of the day, and supporting John's family as they came to grips with what had happened. The emergency services are sometimes referred to as a brotherhood. The men and women of the fire service, law enforcement, and emergency medical services face constant challenges and see some of the worst that humanity can do to itself on a daily basis. The bonds forged between work partners are far deeper than one might expect on the surface. We work together, we socialize together, we celebrate victories and mourn loss together. We will sit and listen when one needs to unload after a particularly bad shift. We will gladly lend money if asked, not worrying about getting paid back. We will give the shirts off our backs to our fellow responders if that is what is needed. We routinely go through various forms of hell together, and we will do just about anything for each other. While it's not something I would normally do, to say that we live by the verse from the Gospel of John from the New Testament, greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends, is not a far stretch for us. We will put ourselves in harm's way in order to protect those in need and each other. Through the days, weeks, and months after 9/11, we came together and supported each other in many ways. Those of us who did not make the trip to Ground Zero sat and listened to those of us who did, while we processed our reactions. Among those of us who did, it may have been nothing more than a knowing glance or a curt nod. Sometimes it was just sitting together over a cup of coffee or a bottle of beer. We talked a lot and we cried a lot, but we helped each other through those dark times. We also threw ourselves into supporting John's family. We provided food and drinks for them. We helped with household chores if needed. We ran errands. And most importantly, we listened. We listened to John's parents, Ann and Lee, himself a retired member of FDNY Rescue Company 2, tell stories about John growing up, how he would get into trouble, how he excelled in ice hockey at Parkwood, his dreams of following in his father's footsteps and eventually joining Rescue 2. We listened to his siblings, Anne-Marie, Brendan, himself a member of the FDNY and now following his father's lead as a member of Rescue 2, and Melissa, tell stories of how John would play jokes on them at any time, his love of being outdoors, and enjoyment of camping, fishing, and hunting. We listened to his wife Yesenia and his older son Andrew as they talked about John the family man and how he strove to raise his children to be the best they could be. They found John 3 months to the day after 9/11. We were all able to acknowledge his sacrifice and say goodbye with a proper funeral in mid-December 2001. Those of us who knew John visit him regularly as he is buried in the cemetery at All Saints Church. Every time I go, I wind up with a smile on my face as I can't help but remember some episode that he was involved in, usually one with a humorous outcome. The healing process for us continues. The buildings may be rebuilt, utilities restored, business may be returning to normal. For the members of Vigilant and all the other responders who were involved that day and in the weeks and months afterwards, the old days are gone. We can never return to what was on September 10, 2001. We continue to live our lives as best as we can, knowing that the memories, the sights, the sounds, the smells may come back at any time. Time lessens the impact of our wounds, but nothing can truly heal them.